of mind.
Well, we are here finally for another Ask Mom and Dad, where so many different things are going on because I can't figure out what needs to be done or not be done, so I'm figuring stuff out along the way. But that's okay. So I'm here with Tanya today. Tanya, say hi.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. You've seen me around.
Well, I know, but we're in a
house.
pretend land where we only see one another on camera. Pretend land on camera makes it very much such that, you can't know what I've been like or where I've been for the last 30 odd days. Because that's been what life has been like.
We took the break from.
Yeah, we took this break forever. In fairness, we were trying to do podcasts when we took the break. We headed to Missouri for a family reunion. I'm going to try that again. We headed to Missouri for a family reunion. Articulate. And that's a good, the word itself is a good vocal exercise.
Yeah,
articulate. And that's
what
better thing when you come up with a word that means something that's actually useful for the something for which it means. That's probably what words are designed to be anyway, but I'm just going to stop there.
That's called onomatopoeia? No. I think that's what it is. When a word says the things that sounds like it,
Yeah. That makes sense. Okay, so where were we? Oh, so we were at the family reunion in Missouri, and I took all of the equipment, some of the equipment, and worked out this great way that we were going to do everything, and it was all set to go, and we set it up, and we recorded it, and it was kind of windy outside, so I was going, this is probably going to be a problem. And I got back to my editing suite, and sure enough, it was sounding great. And then the first real wind came along. Well, what was funny was I should have known there was a problem when we're recording, and in the midst of that recording, one of the cameras kept trying to blow over. It was a problem. So anyway, so
it was worth a try.
Yeah, so it was like, okay, well, I guess this is a done deal. So we'll go back to town next week, and we'll do the next Ask Mom and Dad and just tell everybody, and we'll talk about family. And
then you proceeded to lose your voice for
Yes.
about a full month.
It was the longest voice losing thing I think I've ever experienced. I've lost my voice off and on.
Yeah,
but
for a week or so, but
but this was the first time it was
losing it.
I kept losing it and losing it. And it was like no matter what, and it wasn't getting better. It was just like, and even now just talking about it,
It makes you want to drink water.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it still doesn't sound completely full back but I think it is. It's just I got used to kind of that where I could barely hear you, so that's interesting.
Well, I know, and I'm glad that you enjoyed your freedom from amplification.
Oh no, we still had as much trying to talk to each other as normal. You just ruined your voice most days trying to talk to me.
Well, okay, so I like talking to you. What do you want me to do? It's just one of those things.
Yes.
So we haven't been around because I've been broken, and in the process of that time, I've tried to figure out other ways to upgrade or figure out how to do things a little bit better with our audio or whatever, and just kept breaking stuff because that's what I do real well.
Anyway, so we're trying it again.
Yeah, so we're back. We're working on things being where they need to be. And
in the meantime, we've lost just about all of our family that were around us. Quite a bit of change has happened.
Yeah, everybody that loves us has moved away.
No, not everybody, no. Don't belittle the ones who are still here. They're here, not everyone.
We have little ones?
No, I said don't belittle the ones who are still here. And yes, we still have even a couple grandkids near us. So we're still in Washington. Several of our kids and 3, I guess, of our grandkids, 2 of our grandkids have moved now south and east toward Missouri and Texas and maybe Tennessee and wherever. So, but we still have 2 grandkids around here. One daughter and her husband, and also a son who's stationed nearby. So, and then one who still lives with us that we frequently forget exists. Poor guy. I think he.
Oh yeah, that's
the 17-year-old.
I like to refer to him as our surprise pregnancy. Because we had 6. I mean,
That's only you one.
weren't we done? Well, we were done, but 6 rhymes with that other thing that causes 7. I know I'm a terrible.
That wasn't a rhyme.
That wasn't.
That doesn't work.
No,
Anyway,
I didn't actually.
it doesn't
We're going to
matter.
stop
God
dwelling
wanted
on
him
that
to
when
be
I was
here,
trying to say something
and there are
stupid.
several stories why God wanted him to be here and how we knew that. So we just need to not forget that he's still in our home.
Okay, so what we did and in all fairness, let me just tell
We
you,
were
we were
talking about
sitting
family,
in a
is what you
field
said.
talking about family with the wind blowing. It was warm out, but it wasn't too warm. The wind was cool, and I'm just telling you, it was the perfect conversation. The videography was great, and I'm not going to share any of that with you because why bother? But you and I were talking about family and the importance of family. Why don't you tell me a little bit about the Hinkle family experience growing up? Although you're not a Hinkle, that's your mother's side of the family. You're a Bollinger,
Right.
is your maiden name. But still, the Bollingers didn't gather as much as the Hinkles did. The Bollingers did Tuesday lunch or something, didn't they?
Well, yeah, actually they did at my grandma's house. That particular family. The Bollingers are from that area, so there's quite a few of the different branches, I guess, of whichever great grandfather that settled in that area. Bollinger County is named after him. There was a Bollinger who settled Madison County and whatever. So there's a lot of Bollinger, remnants left there. But yeah, I think because what I got from my grandma Bollinger, who was also a Lewis, that was her maiden name, and descended literally from the family of Meriwether Lewis. There was faith in her background, and in my grandpa's too. But that strength of their faith did not come through in the reunions like it does in the Hinkle, and it's probably just because it's a little bit like, legitimately, I believe, rural versus city. So my dad grew up in what would have been, town proper, and I think there's a little bit harder. I feel like it's a little bit harder for them to actually do the family gathering thing. It's not quite as needy of that because you've got other community that's built up around that. So you've got the whole of the town. Whereas in the rural areas, especially where my grandpa on my mom's side grew up, you have a lot more that they had to work at gathering because they were further spread apart. They had more land, like farming land and stuff like that. So, and then they also had family land. So some of that was some natural gatherings with family, So I think that's probably a dynamic I had really never thought about until right now. Anyway, so
Why not?
Faith on both sides, but legitimately trying to keep the family together. Some families work at that a little harder, maybe, I guess. That's the best way to put that. Maybe it's, like I said, more pointed because it's spread out further, so they've got to gather back in purposefully, as opposed to if you're living in the same town, you don't, you kind of see each other off and on, so you don't work at that, like, yearly reunion
At least the
kind of
Bollingers
thing
were
as
that way.
much.
Is that what you're saying? The Bollingers were more in town.
They lived in that area, didn't really move out of that area quite as
Whereas the Hinkles were.
extreme as well, I guess.
The Hinkles went
Again,
everywhere.
another theory. Well, yeah, but my grandpa kind of was a traveler anyway, so yeah, they were kind of just.
Tell me a little bit about your grandpa.
A little bit, and they were. Which one?
Oh, I'm sorry, Charlie Hinkle.
Okay, so there were 6 kids. He and my grandma Zella married, goodness, way back. I don't know the year they were married.
Before the dawn of time.
Yeah. I think he was born right before the turn of the century, but I don't actually know what year. Anyway, so lived to be about 88. And my grandma Zella died when she was 65, I believe, in her sleep. And then grandpa remarried a couple different times. Anyway, there was mostly the Hinkles are about music, and I think that's another kind of glue that kept them gathering, because when you've got music as your kind of core, you're drawn to others who also like music or do music, So everyone in the Hinkle clan had some sort of connection to music, including music production, because eventually every one of the siblings have someone in their family who has produced an album. So it was very important to
no pressure
that
there.
family, to do their music. Grandpa played the harmonica and just sang. Sometimes he would sing just a cappella at the top of his lungs. He also preached. Wouldn't call himself a pastor, but definitely was a preacher. And in those days, they would kind of fill the pulpits that were needed, and they would help each other in leadership there at those smaller community churches. So anyway, I don't think Grandpa ever had an actual pastorate that would have been paying, because he was a carpenter as well. He worked making different, I'm not even sure all the different things that he made wood-wise, but he was a farmer as well. And during the summer, they would travel to Washington and pick cherries and apples, and made kind of an adventure out of the life. So that's kind of the Hinkle clan. But so every year we still try to gather as a Hinkle family from Charlie Hinkle's line. Now there's a larger Hinkle gathering that's Grandpa's family, and there were 14 of them, 2 of which died in infancy, but
so wait,
12 living.
There was a Hinkle, capital HINKLE overall thing that was Grandpa's larger family.
There's a larger family Hinkle reunion that happens every year as well.
So I've never been to one of those.
I don't go. I've only been maybe once or twice even.
So that would have been the one that when you were really little
times.
that you needed to go to with your mom or something. It's kind of
again, I've seen some film from that, but it would have been my grandfather's family. So that's why it just gets further and further, And I think that's why it was important for, like, even now, me and my first cousins are kind of find it important to try to gather back the Charlie Hinkle's grandchildren, because you lose contact with all those people. There's a lot of them, for one thing, and in ours is a little bit less, obviously, than Grandpa's family was. But yeah, you try to just keep connections, because you've got a lot of there's a lot of heritage there, and in that line there's a lot of spiritual heritage. So it's valuable to keep communication, and knowing that you're praying for each other, knowing that you're supporting each other, even if you're spread out all over the globe somewhat, So that's kind of been a really neat part of being involved in what I would say is probably the truly gem of being part of a rural community, because again, you kind of work at it a little bit harder. I think you need each other more when you're those poorer farmer communities that really did kind of rely on the weather and all kinds of different things to that were outside of your hands to survive and to thrive. And so I think that also glued them together a little bit more. I think I wish my mom was here, we could interview her, because that would probably, I would assume that would be one of the things she would say, is that they needed each other and they drew together to support each other. My mom grew up on what I would consider the closest to a homestead of any that I've been familiar with, which would be that they produced everything they ate, for the most part, with the exception of a slight few things, but including their own honey and sugar cane at times, and of course slaughtering meat and stuff like that. So,
well, I mean, it's not beyond the fact that we might not be able to one day interview your mother. I mean,
yeah,
I'm learning the tech, so we'll figure it out. We'll just have her in a little box on her phone going, what? What? No, she's not that old. That's my mother. And for me, it's always, Mom, take the phone off your ear. I mean, if I try to FaceTime my mother, I swear every time I'm doing an ear exam, and it's like, oh my gosh, Mom, your ears look clean. Go ahead. Yeah, your mom is on top of it, man. She's Miss Tech.
To communicate with her grandkids and
my mom,
or at least her kids.
My mom's aware of her kids. Well, I can no longer pick on my mother about those things, because she's actually slipping into Alzheimer's.
Yeah,
so
she was trying pretty hard.
She knows who we are still, so we're pretty good. And she made an effort at some point, but. Oh, dear mama, I love you so much. But so to the thing, oh gosh, I lost it because I just gloriously ADHD'd into my own family for a second there. But that's why we're talking about your family. It's so much more interesting.
Well, Talk about yours for a second.
Well, mine was different. We had a family reunion every year for a while, but it was a Christmas reunion. I think mine was a lot more like probably like the Bollinger side. We weren't small town. I grew up in a suburb of Atlanta. My mother, my father didn't have any kind of reunion side or anything that I'm aware of. He was one of two boys. He and his brother were estranged.
Although wasn't your grandma part of a pretty larger family?
But I never. There was
really
this. She married off, and I was young and never really understood what Matri's. I mean, she lived to 104 years of age, and a lot of her family's a mystery to me, other than names. I would know names of people that get referenced, but I didn't really know her that well. But on the other side of that, grandma.
Which again, what I was speaking into the urban setting, the sad thing about that is they probably did know and probably kept connections, but not purposefully, because they probably lived within proximities of each other. The sad thing about that is you lose contact without realizing you've lost contact. I think that my dad would speak into that and say, they met on Tuesdays to eat lunch with my grandma and grandpa. There, after a while, after some of them had spread out, the core group got back together, and so whoever was available could come and eat. But I think they legitimately lost contact because they had close contact kind of as a given rather than having to work at it. So then what do you mean though when you say working at it in for like an urban having,
situation?
Calendared reunions. It's when you feel like you see each other often. I feel like you don't have that necessity of a purposeful, we're going to meet, because the Hinkles kind of decided, and I don't remember where or how or who even, I think it may have been my mom and her siblings, decided they didn't want to lose contact completely, and they had spread out, somewhat around Missouri mostly, but close enough that they could still gather, far enough that they couldn't see each other often, so they set a time. It was to be around 4th of July weekend. Most time it was right before, like the weekend before, for every year. Before that, they were trying to gather at Christmases. It was a little difficult because they had to find places, and it was winter and stuff. So I think going towards summer made it so they could go to recreational things and it'd be outdoors and some of that. So anyway, I'm just saying those purposeful reunions may have been more or less obvious when you're in the city and you think you're going to run into each other. It's not as high priority, maybe.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. So I see what you're saying.
So
So what you're saying basically is, if you're making the assumption in your fast-powered life, your fast, high-powered, go-get-em life, that you're just gonna cross each other's paths because you're too busy to think about actually being
high-powered, go-get-em life. That's what Fredericktown was exactly.
It has how many coffee shops? Has a drive-through coffee shop, and according to Catherine,
it doesn't even have
one coffee shop now.
McDonald's even? It did for a few minutes. I think.
There's a McDonald's out by the out by the wall.
By the Walmart.
Well, the wall. There's not enough of it there to be a Walmart. It's just.
That's not true. It's a big, nice 24-hour one. You stop it.
It is
now,
you could drop one of the adjectives. It's a nice 24-hour one. Big for small town. I mean, you could put let me just be clear. You could put Fredericktown, Missouri, inside of that Walmart.
That is not true.
4,000 people can fit in that Walmart.
Getting off the small
easily.
Town. Making fun of the small
I'm not making fun of it. I'm just saying that. Okay, so onto the family thing. All I know is you wanted to leave your town. I only wanted to leave some things in my town.
Okay, there was.
I'll just leave that open.
To go to the other side of town, as it were, because Atlanta was big enough that you could.
Yeah, I could have literally gone across town and maybe never seen anybody, ever again. So you asked me about my family. My family did a Christmas reunion. The Pittmans, my mother's side of the family, did a Christmas reunion every year. She was one of two children, 3 children. I don't know how I forget that one. The older brother was Clayton Pittman's Sonny. Also musical family, also albums, but on the jazz circuit. Your family was in the Southern Gospel circuit. Sonny played Dixieland jazz, and he played up and down the Mississippi River and got to play with the likes of Benny Goodman and all kinds of places, and was just I was too young to appreciate what it was to have a trombone player in the family. And your mom was mom was a classical piano player. She was trained. She's the baby. No, I'm sorry. She's not the baby. She's the second-born child, and she was classically trained at the University of Georgia and quit for some reason. I think she got married. I know she got married. I just think that's why she quit, was she got married.
Okay.
And then her baby brother did not go to college, Ricky. He was always the cool kid to me, cool adult, because he had a Mustang and he worked in sporting goods, so he's always wearing fancy tennis outfits and always, he was sales. He was just a sales dude. Nowadays I look at it and go, okay, so Ricky wasn't as cool as I thought he was. Unfortunately, during COVID, he's the second of her brothers to pass. Their older brother, Sonny, passed when I was 21 years old. I preached his funeral. I don't know still to this day because they never told me what he died from. And I don't know that my mom remembers what he died from. But
talked about that.
Well,
he had a cancer.
Anyways, something killed him. And Ricky passed away with Alzheimer's and during COVID. He wasn't allowed to be. Anyway, long and the short of it was the family. This is going to be one of those podcasts where am I at looking at? Where you're just going to have to deal with the fact that we're just rambling on. This is what we do when we talk. If you don't want to listen, why are you still here? Anyway, we had our Christmas vacation. I'm singing a song. Christmas vacation. We had our Christmas party, and the reason I'm hanging in there to tell this story is because I had Uncle Carlisle, my grandma's brother, and Carlisle fought in the First World War. I think he was old enough to fight the First World War back then, or at least coming off of it. He had a gun that he took off of a German soldier. And I just thought it was the most fascinating thing. He loved to take it down and tell stories about it. And probably was the Second World War. Because back then, the guns were barrel musket loaded. I don't know. I don't remember much about the gun. I just remember Uncle Carlisle was the coolest thing in the world. And he drank a little too much at the parties and got to be much more fun to listen to. We had my cousin Buddy, who was the family gay. And I say that because at that time, that was not a thing that was, culturally talked about at all. Everyone just kind of knew that he was different, but he was the coolest guy in the world, and he also passed away some years ago. I think AIDS took him. Did you ever actually get
to talk to him?
I don't know. Buddy, as an adult? As an adult, not really. I think that what happened was our family reunions fizzled out. I say the family gay, and that's just because that's the way I knew that when I was a kid they were talked about, or thought about. And Buddy, but everybody loved Buddy. But there was also the family drunk. We were like this family of stereotypes.
That's sad.
Oh yeah, and it was funny because it was during that party almost every year, and of course my source of information is mom and dad saying, well, by 9 o'clock so and so is going to be drunk. And by so-and-so, Buddy will be there with and have to go somewhere because he's got to go meet his friends, and they quote that or something.
It's kind of funny because your life, so opposite of mine, would have been something I'd watched on a movie and wondered if it was real. And yet something that you lived, because you lived, again, in much more of an urban setting, obviously, than a small town, which I was... just using as the term of what I meant when someone lives in town versus out of town.
No, my family was very much that of fodder for situation comedy or maybe just a drama with a tragic ending. I'm not sure. Well, it's not the worst. Like I said, I don't know why I'm unpacking my family, and I don't know if my mother would be calling me up if she could remember what and heard this. She'd be like, nope, that was wrong. Don't need to fact check me.
One thing I remember when you took me back to the one reunion I remember going to, I remember you kind of preluding it with, it's going to be completely different than you've ever been used to, and you felt completely out, like no one understood you, and you didn't really get them, even though you could tell all about them. I remember how out of sorts, I guess, I don't know how else to put that. I believe because of your faith, you truly went back with the kind of, what are these people living for? Who are they? What purposes do they, even have? And you would go back with a genuine new identity that didn't fit into their scenarios. I'm sad in the sense that you didn't feel like probably you could have ministered to them, but offered them what you had in Jesus. But at the same time, I could see where you're the child, you're the one that's going to be looked down on in a sense, or maybe questioned about what your life is like right now, because they would have all not seen you as someone to go asking questions to, But it makes me sad.
Well, I mean, when you and I got married, I was not new to my faith. I was new to calling and ministry, and I was diverging from my family for the longest time. But
Well, you used to tell me that you felt more at home in my.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Your family was much more rich in tradition and faith. We had traditions, but they weren't necessarily faith. Not what I understood faith to be. I mean, I was raised in the Southern Baptist tradition, but I think it would be fair to say that it felt more like a loose Episcopalian culturally.
We always say kind of more of a high church.
Yeah, I used to make sure I used the First Baptist Church. I'd always say that. So let's move back to your family, because it's far more interesting.
I don't know about that.
I don't know that I remember enough stories. My memories are so vague. They're, being in the basement of Carlisle's house, all my favorite parties. But okay, there was good people, but I'm as terrible with my own family as I am with anybody's family. I can't remember half of my grandmother and extended family. I don't know anybody's names. And I used to feel guilty for years that I'd go to these parties and I knew the keys. I knew my key members. I knew about the Buddy, and I knew about the Carlisle, and I knew about the Ruby, and I knew about and then don't forget Chick-fil-A lady. I mean, but that's what I knew her for as a long time. She was the one aunt that I had that worked at Chick-fil-A, and I wanted to go see, because she worked at Chick-fil-A. And when you're 12
cool.
and you can go to the mall and go to Chick-fil-A, heck, nowadays Chick-fil-A's are everywhere, and still people act like they're 12 when they go to Chick-fil-A's.
I think it's more that you didn't feel a connection to them as much as you may have felt to my family, and I think that does have a spiritual angle to it, because I remember there was one of your I think she was an aunt, maybe, or maybe it was a cousin, that was so kind to us and sent us like anniversary cards every year, and she always said she was praying for us. And I remember really feeling connected to her, but not even as much to your own mother. And I feel like it has something to do with that, because I mean, what we know of life in the Spirit is that there are connections that you don't even have to say a word sometimes, and the person next to you is loving Jesus the same as you, or connected in that sense that there's a bigger, broader sense of reality of life, deeper. And I think then there's other people that you wonder if you can connect to them at all, because you're not thinking on the same planes. You're not seeing life the same. And it often concerns me when relatives are that way, because then you wonder where their spiritual life is, what their walk is like. I think that's what was so rich about going home for me, always for the reunions with my family, is it was always I need to what will be the word? I need to collect from these people their love for Jesus. I need to be near them, because it infuses me with life, because they loved him with their heart and soul, and every bit of the heritage that we shared was about that. It was about worship. It was about trusting in God. It was a deep sense of there's more to this life than even just this reunion of faces that I love, but there was depth. Every time we were together, we worshiped, or we talked about God's love for us, or there was always that theme. So it wasn't what's the latest gossip of so-and-so's life, or what's the thing or that's the person that such and such.
I don't know. I've heard a little gossip around some of those reunions, but I get what you're saying.
What? No, I'm not saying there wasn't stories.
I'm kidding. I think that
what I'm saying though is that was the reason I was drawn to go back to them, and I'm saying that it sounds like maybe even just trying to make connections was difficult for you, but you weren't drawn to go back and make those connections because there wasn't. Am I right about that, or?
Yeah, I think what's important there's something about the nature of the family that you were raised in that draws you to the larger family. My larger family, yeah, I know that's what I'm reiterating that back to you, because I'm there was something there that drew you, and there wasn't that for me. I think it's because I don't think my mother and father, my dad too, was getting away from his family. He, like I said, he was estranged from his brother. He loved and took care of his mother. His dad was a kind of a grumpy old coot, and we used to, joke about Hugh rolling up cigarettes in his garage for years. He's the poster child for the Cancer Society to say, for the cigarette company to say, Cancer Society, prove us wrong.
Yeah.
The man smoked like crazy and died from something completely unrelated. There was something in your world, your family was so interconnected, it creates that to this day, even though, and that's why I wanted to talk about this today, was because we went to your family reunion. Mine no longer exists because my family was gathering around we're family, so we get together. And we talk about each other and talk to each other and we catch up. Your family, what you were just saying, and I know I heard you. I think I heard you right in this. Your family was gathering around something bigger than that. We're family, and there's something inherently greater about who we are. I don't have a five-star theologian in my family tree. You do. There's a.
I wouldn't say there's greater about who we are. There is something greater that holds us together or holds us when we can't hold ourselves. That's what we sense when we're together. We see each other's faces. We love each other like a family. But there's definitely a broader draw than just people that are standing around in a group. It's a sense of a calling, a sense of God's presence, I think, that keeps us still wanting so badly to stay connected. So we pray for each other. We're not perfect to be in family. We're not perfect at not judging each other, like you said, and definitely by no means have we not made mistakes and had difficulties. But I'm saying that the bigger narrative, like you're saying, the broader truth, the strength of what I believe would be otherworldliness in that sense, is what we're drawn to more than we're even drawn to each other. I believe that, and I think my mom would agree that it wouldn't just be, like you said, something that we just do because we're family. We do because we need each other. We know we do. So yeah, it speaks to the bigger family of God, the kingdom of God, that we want to stay connected to and desperately need.
Yeah, and I'm not, and just to be clear, as a disclaimer, I'm not saying that, I'm going to say this, but it's going to sound terrible, but it's not. I'm not saying that every single Hinkle or relation is the most godly person on earth. I'm trying to say.
But I just qualified that.
Yeah,
I didn't say we were perfect. I didn't say
well,
we
I
don't
know.
have
I want to emphasize it because I'm feeling guilty about how bad my family. No, I'm just kidding.
What? You didn't have any say so in that.
No, I didn't. I'm saying my family's so much less spiritual. Yours is good. It's better. I'm just being weird.
Sad for you, honey, but you didn't have a say so in that.
No, I didn't. I was adopted.
And that's what I was trying to say.
So I was.
You wouldn't have had a say so.
I wouldn't have had a say so even if I was born into it. Portable rug keeps coming and going under my feet. That's a dog, if anyone's curious. So yeah, I'm sorry that I missed you qualifying it, but or didn't quite say it the same way. Because what I want to get at is, and what I heard you saying, I think, was, just real people, but the overarching theme in your household or your extended household family was that spiritual heritage is rich. It wasn't in mine. And so what is one thing that we've said, okay, so the idea behind today's podcast was supposed to be, why do we get together as family? What's important about that, right? Well, first thing is we said so far today is if you're not intentional about it, it's not going to happen. Your family reunions have been intentionally planned. They've been changed from the date has been changed, I think, one time, and they just recently changed that like 7 years ago. Moved it back a little bit.
Well, they recently decided to let whoever's planning it kind of decide about that weekend based on where they can find a spot. So yeah, it's shifted a little bit. We're still trying to aim for the summer.
Yeah, so it's still a summer. Okay, still summer, but early summer, right? I don't think it's ever been later than June, has it?
Well, like I said, originally it was supposed to be around the 4th of July, so late June was what it was traditionally for quite a while there, but now it's
Yeah. Okay. So now it's late May is when it seems to be happening, right? So, okay. Anyway, the point of the matter is if you're not intentional about it, we were intentional, but there was something. It's not just intentionality that keeps your family together. There's got to be something that you're clinging to. Your mother's side of the family is 6, is what you said, right? There's 6 of them, and there
were 6 kids.
that for our experiences, there were 6 kids there, and they dominated the numbers of that family. Now they're down to half that, right? There's 3 of them remaining.
Yeah.
And yet we still gathered. How many was there, baby? 50, 55 people there? I mean, we were 30
like
of them.
Yeah, right.
We were 22.
We were quite a bit.
We were 22 of them. We are now the patriarchs, the younger versions. But I mean, I was great when your dad just sitting there with tears welling up in his eyes while I get choked up thinking, I get choked up, it's stupid, because of all those kids and grandkids and great grandkids around him, he's tenderized. It's like life is like a tenderizing hammer. It just softens you up over the years. That's actually not a bad metaphor.
And to be genuinely grateful that God has blessed the way he has, and we know that it's his blessing. It's not anything we've done. That's, I think, where my dad's heart lives.
And so my idea is that there's something greater, that relationship with Christ has helped to keep for strong relationships within the family, even if not everyone in the family was perfect, because no one's family ever is. And when I say perfect, I mean some people can look from the outside and think, well,
I know what you're
that family's great.
I'm
saying, but the ones that were
of, quote, right or good or upstanding or anything like that.
Yeah, your family kind of worked like a church because it's big enough to be a church.
We even had mental illness in our family. We have some extreme situations, and of course we have political issues and stuff like that. I think it's still, though, that the bottom line to most, and I could name really probably on one hand the ones of our families who don't, and I'm talking about extended down to the great grandkids who aren't in church. There's very, very few of them. And that's what I mean by, I believe that heritage from really would be probably my great grandfather and maybe even before that, because I obviously didn't get to meet them. But they passed on a faith heritage that the Bible says will go on to the generations past you when you are faithful.
And that's evident, yeah.
And so that's what we're thankful for, and truly that's what we believe God has done. It's not anything that we have done. And in these normal situations and normal families with legitimately dysfunctional, situations and normal problems, we've watched God be faithful where we have honored him as best we knew how, and trusted and always turned back to him. So I believe that is a glue that families need. And I think that's what I was saying about your family, and I'm sad for that, because I think that's probably what was missing. And in reality, your mom might even, if she had her, true cognition about her right now, would probably agree with us that would have been a richness that they were missing in her own family. Just in the sense that the life that she knew was about this is my, I guess, just assessment from the outside, but it ended up being about her dad's business and the money that came from that, and the heritage of that, more so, don't you think, than the life they had even involved in church, which I think they were. Irene and her husband, like Clayton, right? They were in church, weren't they?
They were.
They would have been seen as a part
I don't
of
know the
church.
answer to that question. Truthfully, I don't know if they were in church or not.
That's what I'm saying.
I do. So, like I said, most of my memories
that
about
wasn't the
them.
heritage that came through.
Yeah, most of my memories. Well, of course, in fairness, my grandfather passed away when I was like 5. So I never really got to know Clayton. I got a picture of myself riding on his back. That's all I remember.
Well, the reason I bring up church is that is also sense of family. And when you grow up with a sense of family one way or another, either in a church setting that makes you know you need family, or in a family that also represents what I believe represents the church, then you've got that coming at both angles. You've got that value and that valuable.
Okay, so that brings me kind of to a thing. Real quick, I wanted to say, I do want to say that my love for music is something I carried away.
Yeah,
from there, because
absolutely.
as I mentioned, my uncle played the trombone, and professionally my mother played classical.
And it
so
was a
every
bit of
Christmas
glue,
party,
like you said, a little bit of
and then when I, of
yeah.
course, I started singing, I got a scholarship to school for singing, and so all of a sudden, every time there's a Christmas party, Sonny and Mom played the
And Greg
piano,
needed to sing.
and Greg needs to get up and sing, and I had to sing "Oh Holy Night." I got to my tenor chops strung out at Christmas parties every year, but I think. Oh, geez, I did ADHD right back. I'm trying to feel like defend my family. No, I'm not doing defending anybody.
I'm not trying to attack them either. I'm
No,
trying to make an
no,
assessment.
I don't feel like we're trying to attack them. But I didn't want to lose the thought about what's important from your world and your growing up experience versus mine, in the sense that there were good things that were happening in mine.
Absolutely.
But and we were, both families were intentional about having and maintaining family, because family's important, but we lost that because that was the only thing that mattered. There wasn't anything greater. Your family, on the other hand, is continuing, and at least when I started saying a minute ago, while not everyone's perfect in it, there were enough. While not everyone's faith was the strongest, there was levels of strength, and that's all of us. So there was enough of a strength there to where it's being pulled from generation to generation. Does that make sense? It's living on. Whereas I honestly don't know my dad's side of the family. I couldn't connect with anybody on his. I don't know anyone on his side of the family. My mom's side of the family, when she passes away, I don't have there's nothing. But you, on the other hand, when you go to see your mother, you're just as likely to spend time with her sister, or other sorts of extended family than I ever would. You get what I'm saying there? There's a heritage that ties everybody together, that makes the family knit tighter, that is more than just
that's what
just
I meant by a
obligation or
draw.
responsibility, because we're family. Family sticks together.
That's what I meant by a draw, because it's almost an invisible. It's literally an invisible. In fact, we don't get to see. I don't get to see very many of them as often as I would love to, but I feel like almost like really great friends that we've been close to wherever we've gone, mostly in our church. We would pick right back up wherever we've left off, and we would know each other's hearts, and
Right.
we would be able to pray together and sense the other person's needs, maybe in some ways that someone else might not pick up on. And that, I do believe, is the Holy Spirit. I believe that's why we have those connections, even in family. And I think they, like you're saying, they supersede that. They go beyond blood relations. They go beyond even relationships that are strong. They can in an immediate family. It's harder sometimes, and I think it's because the whole brother is born for adversity kind of thing. It's almost like you're almost, siblings are supposed to be rivals or some whatever. They're supposed to fight somewhat, but I think it can happen in a nuclear family as well. And I do believe our own kids are trying really hard to permeate that in their own lives. I am so blessed and thankful that they look forward to trying to encourage each other in their faith. They're not perfect at it, and they're obviously none of them in perfect places,
right.
Growth to where we want them to be yet. But they're going that direction, and they long to be together for those reasons. I think they love to worship together, and they love to look at the scriptures together. They've, some of them that moved away have been saying, "Oh, I just miss Bible study so much," and it was just like the siblings and us, for the most part, a few extras, So it's really awesome to me, because I hope and pray that for them, that they'll have those connections, and the depth of their longing to be together is eternal, not just physically being in each other's presence. It's deeper. It's a longing to be with the family of God. That's what I was trying to what I say by that, because the fun part about our family, or the thing I have loved about going back to these Hinkle reunions, is there's various ones who have attached themselves to our family too, and they're just going to come because they're part. It's almost like, again, like a church family. I'm going to be a part of this family because what I sense is what I want from God's family. I want from the kingdom of God. So that's really cool, and I think I know my grandpa would be thrilled to know that, as well as further beyond him, his father and whatever, and relatives beyond him would know that that's what they were trying to give to the next generation, is that love, that sense of God's family, that kingdom purpose. And I believe that. Like I said, it's not it's not a perfect scenario, but it definitely is rich in heritage that way. And something
Okay.
to be thankful for.
Well, I'm gonna say that we've been at this for I don't know how long because I haven't been watching my clock, but long enough. So if you had to wrap this up, what were the big ideas? I mean, I kept trying to bring them back around, but I can't remember. What was the most important thing to
Well,
you
did
that we talked about
pretty well
today?
about that.
It was.
Well, to me, it is that you've got a family you're connected to, blood relatives that you know and love. But if you've got a spiritual connection in those same families, it's going to go deeper and richer.
Mm-hmm.
But you also can connect in very, very similar ways without blood relations into a church family who is the family of God, who's a kingdom of, people searching after God's heart. And that's what connects you. That's what makes lasting relationships. Not blood relatives, not even, the old home place or memories. And like you said, not even familiar faces that you get together with once in a while, but there's got to be a deeper connection. And those connections can be made even literally just in the local church if you don't have maybe say you're literally an orphan and you have no siblings. That doesn't mean that you cannot find those deep relationships that you long to be with them. And I believe that's what the family of God is. So I think it's neat when you have a family in this earth that represents that. But if you don't have, you can find one.
I think that's
God
a
has
great
that offer.
word to wrap that up on. And so I'm going to say that's that. And I guess bring us to the end of this podcast and say thank you guys for coming along and paying attention today. And we'll catch you next time on Ask Mom and Dad. Thanks so much.
I keep on. I keep on. I keep on. I keep on. Keep on. Keep on. I keep on.